I thought I'd do another one on the topic of creation versus evolution, hopefully to strengthen Christians' faith and maybe destroy some of the uh, brainwashing that's been going on the planet for a while um, by Satan and the evolutionists working together. Anyway, not long ago, when everyone believed the world was young, wasn't that long ago, but when Darwin wrote his book Origin of the Species and Charles Lyell wrote Principles of Geology, the scientific community changed its point of view on the age of the Earth. Okay, before that, they were pretty much convinced it was young. Darwin taught Hinduism, was taught Hinduism by his granddad, which was has evolution as its belief system. That is everything changing forms and is being reborn into different forms until it becomes one with their God. Okay, so Darwin got this idea, changed it slightly that animals and plants too change and become more complex over time, evolving. Then combined with the theory of rock layers, that the simplest creatures are in the oldest layers and the newest ones are in the highest layers, the idea was sold to everyone. Okay, simple as that. The Bible says God created all the animals and it does not mention evolution. That's quite important. In fact, part of the lie of the devil, what he said to Eve, actually sounds very much like evolution if you look at what the devil says to Eve in the beginning. This should actually be a warning. If part of the fall of mankind was a lie, and evolution was implied in that lie, then that should actually warn us that evolution, where its source comes from, who invented the idea. My belief is that evolution is a lie, which most of the world's religions teach, except the Bible and the Quran. Believing evolution, I think, erodes the Bible doctrines and makes people not trust what is fully written in the scriptures. For example, it says God created the heavens and the earth and in 6 days rested on the seventh. Now, if you start questioning the Bible, where do you stop questioning the Bible? Good question. The problems with evolution, there's so many, you could spend weeks. Um, Time for all the creatures to have changed. Okay, if in fact the world is not as old as the rock layer theory suggests, then evolution could not have occurred. There is a fairy tale that is told to children that is similar to evolution. It says a princess kisses a frog and it turns into a prince. In evolution, the same is believed, but instead there is millions of years to wait after the kiss, and then it happens. Rock layers, the strata might not actually be that old at all. Surprise, surprise, okay? Strata layers might not actually be that old. Um, in fact, one thing that is very important to understand is that the layers with all their different ages, like the Jurassic layer, are not in order that they teach they are in. Nowhere on Earth are the layers found in the order of ages. Okay? Say that again. Nowhere on Earth are the layers found in order of ages. Okay? That's crucial to understand. That alone should destroy the myth of the rock layer theory, really, but that's not enough because they come up with some quite interesting ways to get around it. Many times the so-called oldest layers are actually at the top and the youngest ones are at the bottom. Also, there are often many missing layers. Um, the explanations for these aren't very believable. Okay, they have hundreds of millions of years of missing layers sometimes, with no evidence or signs of erosion, and it basically begs the question, doesn't it? Maybe there aren't any missing layers because it isn't about time frame. Maybe. Anyway, the most damaging fact is the strata layers are formed by water sifting. That's how water layers, strata layers are usually formed. Since the Bible says that there has been a global flood and that all the land above the sea level there's been a global flood and all the layers above the sea level have strata layers over it, it does sort of point that there was a global flood. That is strong evidence to suggest that there was a global flood. Creatures have been trapped in a flood and caught in mudslides have been fossilized. They would have been sorted by weight, if you think about it, while they were living on the land before the flood, or wherever they were. So sea creatures and land creatures would naturally be found in different places. If you think about what could have happened, rapid burial actually explains the fossils and the layers found. It also explains the oil deposits and buried trees. There's more evidence of a flood causing the layers than the theory proposed by the evolutionists. Okay, there's far more evidence suggesting the flood caused all that. There are 800 cultures that have a flood story in their history. Okay, 800 cultures have a flood story, and this is actually what we would expect if there really was a. The Bible says there was a flood. If there really was a flood, there should be some ancient records of it from cultures, and that's what we find. Over 800 cultures have it. Without the vast ages proposed by the rock layer theory, the theory of evolution completely collapses and is basically just a mere fairy tale again. Another problem that should destroy evolution is the missing transitional forms between all the animals and plants. Darwin said the only reason they were missing was because they had not had enough time to find them yet. But now we know they just don't exist. Okay, we've had plenty of time to find them, still can't find them. Another problem is that every proof Darwin used to show evolution has actually been disproved now. So the basis on which he actually relied on to try and prove evolution and it isn't there anymore. Every example he used actually has been debunked. So Darwin actually, maybe Darwin, I'm not sure if Darwin would have actually held on to his theory quite so hard as evolutionists today do. Mutations were proposed as the mechanism for evolutionary change, but this has serious problems too, since there has not been very many observable changes that result in positive changes that survival of the fittest would demand. I'm only aware of 2 positive changes through mutation, and both of them actually cause worse problems than any benefits. Okay, so you could argue that they're positive changes, but they actually cause worse problems. So there doesn't seem to be any mutational positive changes that have been observed. Many people do not know that there is no reason to believe the world is old at all. There's actually not really any real reason why you should believe the world is old. I personally think the only reason why people do is through the incredible amount of media brainwashing that's out there. Okay, just the total saturation of amazing. Every program you read or see or museum you go to has millions of years on it. Okay, so it's so much brainwashing that it actually becomes difficult to believe that millions of years don't exist. But if we started, if they don't, it's crazy brainwashing. Out of all the world clocks, there's about 120 of them. The only ones that are used to prove the world is old is the radioactive dating methods, and this dating method actually proves a young Earth when you examine it in depth. Since the rate of change can be affected if the substance of the mass in the rock is altered. Okay, so the mass of the rock, if that's altered, then the actual rate of change when you measure it is the actual amount is different, so the actual proves young. Spontaneous generation of life is what evolution says happened. Okay, spontaneous generation of life. That materials have come alive. Okay, that matter, that things that are dead have become living creatures. This idea was actually proposed every century, but was first reputed. It was refuted by scientists every single time it came up. One of the first examples was for spontaneous generation of life was that rats had spontaneously generated from rubbish, okay, which obviously is stupid. Rubbish actually attracted the rats, not spontaneously generated them. The next one, which was proposed by science, was that flies were spontaneously generated from meat. Again, that was disproven. And then every argument got smaller and smaller and harder to disprove. Okay. The next one was that bacteria evolved in a test tube. Okay. Each time a scientist disproved the ideas until the problem became actually beyond their level of technology to disprove, like the molecular level. The bacteria was disproven, I think, by Louis Pasteur. Disproved that bacteria actually didn't evolve; it was actually through the air. So all these things have been disproven each time, but it actually has just keeps getting harder and harder because of technology needed to disprove it. Science is now caught up and raises questions about evolution, which it hasn't. Basically, it can't really prove. One is problem with evolution is DNA has been programmed. The instructions have been encoded into it, and there's no answer to how the programming is done without a programmer. Okay, no one knows how to do programming without a programmer. So there's a big problem. Another problem with evolution is the irreducible complexity issue. It shows that when something is broken down to its simplest parts, each has to be working for the object or animal to function. For example, a cell needs to have a functioning cell wall, a DNA, a reproductive factory, a reader, and all functioning at once for it to work. One could not evolve first before the others. They all must be working for it to all work together, fit together and work. So a cell is a major problem. Cells are not simple. Okay, they're more complex than most companies. A byproduct of evolution is the belief in aliens, since their logic is that if life evolved on Earth, then it must have evolved somewhere in the universe. Personally, I think the belief in aliens is just another deception to lure people away from the believing in the Bible. I've no doubt demons would be encouraging this belief in aliens, maybe even pretending to be them. No doubt they wouldn't try that. I've heard from several people that some demons look identical to aliens, prophetic people who can see spiritual things. So I'm not exactly sure how the aliens. It's just, I guess, evolutionists say if you must be so closed-minded to believe life is only on Earth, because look at the vast heavens, where in fact the vast heavens are actually testimony to the powerful glory of the Creator and how powerful He is, not necessarily that's what they are there for. That's why He made them so amazingly immense, so we could see the power of His ability to create. He didn't make a little tiny universe so we could go, oh, why didn't you make it bigger? Okay. But instead people are saying, no, you're being closed-minded, thinking life is only on Earth. Really, evolutionists are being closed-minded, thinking that God doesn't exist and couldn't make a large universe if He was going to make one. Why would He make a small one if He's all-powerful? Because He's going to make a very large, impressive one to impress His creation of how magnificent He is.